Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 Origin Continent based on novel. So let's start. The eye of life and death on Luo Feng's brow opened. This complete bloodline burning with black flames appeared multilayered in his observation, with countless secret patterns interwoven in each layer. Ultimately, these layers fused perfectly into a whole, forming a bloodline that was born to leap beyond the braided cage. Such an integration, and it can leap out of the braided cage. Luo Feng was dazzled. Merely a low-level primordial bloodline of the early-stage divine emperor had revealed the secret to leaping beyond the braided cage before Luo Feng's eyes. The supplemental schemes I conceived before are full of flaws. Back on Earth, my homeland often said, learn from the nature of heaven and earth. Now as I comprehend the primordial biological bloodline nurtured by nature, it seems like another form of learning from heaven and earth. Luo Feng's heart was devout. Let alone the complete fusion of life and death, even just the integration methods are varied. I need to refine them one by one. Luo Feng immersed himself in it. The first integration method. The second integration method. The complete refinement of each method was immensely difficult. It required understanding the essence of their bonding from countless secret patterns, before ultimately distilling a universally applicable integration method. During his comprehension, Luo Feng also consumed auxiliary cultivation treasures that significantly enhanced his speed of cognitive processes. After all, for a divine emperor-level mind, delving into the mysteries of leaping beyond the braided cage was still quite strenuous. Even then, it took Luo Feng more than one epoch to fully comprehend the Nirvana fire tribulation snake bloodline of the early-stage divine emperor. Although I distilled numerous life and death integration methods, I still lack the fundamental perfect union. Luo Feng thought to himself, countless integration methods must achieve perfect union to truly leap beyond the braided cage. This is the weakest life form to leap beyond the braided cage. Luo Feng sighed inwardly. I can't even grasp its essence. Among the innate primordial lives, the early-stage divine emperor level is indeed the weakest. This one bloodline has already taught me so much. Luo Feng was quite content. From merely the weakest bloodline, he had managed to distill a full 19 life and death integration methods. If these integration methods were applied to his life and death Tao, his strength would naturally see significant improvement. No rush to fuse them into the life and death Tao, let me accumulate first. The second bloodline, the Ghost Hunter bloodline of the early-stage divine emperor. I had previously supplemented its fragmented materials according to 12 disconnected schemes, but those schemes were noticeably flawed. Luo Feng pondered. Using the newly comprehended 19 life and death integration methods as a basis, Luo Feng began revising and supplementing. It took him a full 1,000,000 days before Luo Feng was satisfied with the newly completed scheme. Only then did he begin examining the early-stage divine emperor, Ghost Hunter bloodline, with his eye of life and death. Saw the Novelia.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. About 60 to 70% similarity. Luo Feng's face lit up with joy. Compared to the crudeness and flaws of the first bloodline's supplementation, the second bloodline's supplementation already showed the embryonic form of a perfect answer. The direction is right. Luo Feng grew more and more encouraged, scrutinizing the Ghost Hunter bloodline in deeper detail. With an ample supply of cultivation resources, Luo Feng felt himself making constant progress. At this moment, the only factor hampering his cultivation speed was his own rate of comprehension. Even a divine emperor-level thought process seemed insufficiently fast. If it were a high-level primordial life, their comprehension speed might be tens of thousands of times faster than his. take it slow. If the speed is slow, simply spend more time. At this moment, Luo Feng felt an increasing sense of gratitude toward Yuan Xiong Palace Master, whose 50 billion primordial crystals were proving immensely helpful. Perhaps Yuan Xiong Palace Master had carefully considered this before gifting such a fortune. This sum was more than enough for a divine emperor to achieve a wealthy cultivation, provided there were no extravagant expenditures. Luo Feng's gaze swept over the bloodlines arranged nearby. Early-stage divine emperor bloodlines totaled 323. Middle-stage divine emperor bloodlines totaled 257. Late-stage divine emperor bloodlines totaled 152. Though these first three types appeared abundant, Luo Feng's wealth allowed him to afford them with ease. They cost a total of 8.3 billion primordial crystals. 36 perfection-level divine emperor bloodlines were purchased, costing 19.2 billion primordial crystals. These bloodlines were Luo Feng's greatest focus, as they represented low-level primordial lives who had pushed their own bloodlines to their ultimate limits, vividly showcasing the mysteries of bloodlines. Given the rarity of low-level primordial lives embodying both life and death at the divine emperor perfection level in the Nine Rivers sacred realm, these bloodlines were scarce. Elder Xingyi specifically sourced and delivered a batch from the dark sacred realm. Each bloodline was accompanied by over 10 sets of matching materials. This time, Luo Feng also bought some missing materials, spending a hefty sum. Including the bloodlines, the total expenditure reached 28.3 billion primordial crystals. This was still significantly discounted by Elder Xingyi. Fortunately, a low-level primordial life corpse can yield a significant number of bloodlines, and the price remains within an acceptable range. Luo Feng thought. On the land of origin, those primordial bloodline creatures cultivated by the two nations' ancestors were far from entities capable of leaping beyond the braided cage. In aspects such as vitality, they remained markedly inferior. Moreover, the nation's ancestor-level bloodline refinement techniques were quite rudimentary, often extracting only a few bloodlines from a single creature. But in the Nine Rivers sacred realm, the utilization of a low-level primordial life corpse was pushed to its limits. Any waste equated to losing primordial crystals. Simply extracting blood from the entire body could yield 10 or more complete bloodlines. Significant skeletal structures, hooves, and claws could further be utilized for artifact refining, alchemy, or even puppet crafting. Whether in the Nine Rivers sacred realm, or the dark sacred realm, there are too many strong entities, and the competition for trade is brutally fierce. Every technique is refined to near perfection. The largest cost of selling various treasures is the material cost. Luo Feng reflected to himself. A weapon at the divine emperor perfection level, if it was a common piece requiring less material, could be purchased for merely 1 million primordial crystals. A more complex divine emperor perfection level battleship might cost 2 to 3 million primordial crystals. It's only the large-scale, movable formations priced typically above 5 million primordial crystals. In the dark sacred realm, half-primordial level enlightened ones are numerous. Such weapon secret treasures rarely fetch exorbitant prices. Luo Feng thought. Truly rare items, such as those exchanged from the infinite space treasure vault, like the undying heart, were exceptionally precious. The materials of world-level primordial lives couldn't be hunted, and each piece was tremendously expensive. As for treasures exchanged from infinite space valued over 10,000 reward points, they were always aids for leaping beyond the braided cage, like the lie of life and death. The quantity refined by Senior Yuan and others was strictly limited, each one was priceless, and even prohibited from being taken out of the source world. If a cultivator died, such treasures would always be reclaimed by infinite space. For example, the Eye of Life and Death had already passed through the hands of many previous users. 9 Rivers Sacred Realm, Yuan City. Within a grand cave mansion, a massive spherical creature was coiled. The surface of the spherical creature intermittently manifested faces, resentful, frenzied, slumbering, laughing, indifferent. Various expressions emanated their influences over the surrounding area. Although low-level primordial lives often infiltrated the city, no intruder had ever dared to approach this colossal lair. This was the insect nest. A peculiar and eerie life form, its mere existence rivaled the power of 3 hallmasters. The insect nest's surface was riddled with countless holes, with cultivators frequently flying in and out. At the core of the insect nest. Master, over the past epoch, our elixir sales have dropped by nearly half. An elderly man spoke respectfully. How could sales decline so drastically? A graceful and beautiful woman sat there, mildly surprised. Through her long cultivation journey, her resources came from multiple sources, including the operations, thefts, and raids conducted across her insect nest's sphere of influence. Naturally, all income retained a share for the insect nest master. Merely elixir sales, for just an epoch, were inconsequential to her. But if this trend persisted, it would be frustrating. The Dan Tower has massively increased output during the last epoch. Their elixirs of the same tier are slightly cheaper than ours. Some factions in the city have directly shifted to bulk purchases from the Dan Tower, causing our sales to drop. The elder reported. Changqing building owner is this bold? The woman was astonished. Who gave him such courage? During your closed-door cultivation, Yuan City welcomed a newly ascended elder-level powerhouse named Luo Feng. He's already joined the Dan Tower. The elder informed. The woman nodded faintly, then began reviewing the latest intelligence on Yuan City. After reading through the reports, she understood the situation. A newly ascended powerhouse, capable of suppressing Tianhe. Her gaze turned cold. Though aware of the conflict between Dan Tower and me, he dares to meddle. Simply continue normal sales, other matters don't concern you. She instructed. You may leave. Understood. The elder obeyed and retreated. The woman sat quietly, gazing toward the direction of the Dan Tower. The city isn't suitable for open action. Let the spiritual avatar meet this Luo Feng divine emperor. She remained seated, yet from the vast insect nest, an imperceptible stream of spiritual power emerged. Once the spiritual stream left, the surface of the insect nest regained its calm, no longer manifesting faces. HMPH. The spiritual power condensed into the woman's likeness, moving through Yuan City's skies. In her ordinary state, she remained undetectable to others. Yuan City's multicolored layers of defense systems swept over the woman's avatar. It's the insect nest master. Why would she dispatch a spiritual avatar? Among the 3 elder-controlled defense systems, her presence was noted, but they refrained from intervention. After all, the insect nest master was an elder of Yuan City, and her avatar's activity within the city was entirely legitimate. Arrived. In mere moments, the insect nest master's spiritual avatar reached the entrance of the Dan Tower. She raised her head to observe the sprawling complex. Within the Dan Tower complex resided 2 elder-level individuals, the Changqing building owner, and, naturally, Luo Feng. Luo Feng was currently attuned to the formations he'd deployed across the Dan Tower. These 36 layers of life and death formations were refined by various senior cultivators, who each possess unique achievements in the art of life and death integration. Luo Feng considered. Previously, some aspects eluded me. But after comprehending primordial bloodlines, I now understand them better. Luo Feng reflected. Some elements within these formations even appear clunky and rudimentary. Though these seniors had other opportunities, none possessed the eye of life and death, Even if they bought primordial bloodlines, they couldn't observe their complete structure, they could only view fragments and infer from them. Luo Feng abruptly sensed an eerie and chilling pulse, faint yet dauntingly terrifying through mere contact. His Lai Yuan technique, constantly active, automatically shielded against the cold intrusion. Who's there? With a single thought, Luo Feng increased the power of the 36 formation layers, while also activating his biomimetic destruction eye. He then spotted a spiritual womanly figure standing at the entrance of the Dan Tower's main building. The biomimetic eye of destruction on Luo Feng's brow could see the figure of the spiritual woman, yet he could not recognize her. This was because the insect nest master's true body and spiritual avatar had distinctly different appearances and auras. The insect nest master, Changqing building owner, relying on the Dan Tower formation, managed to glimpse the figure of this spiritual woman. His expression changed abruptly upon sighting her. He had had far too many dealings with the insect nest master, and had even encountered her spiritual avatar before. Changqing. The spiritual woman stood there, coldly looking at the Changqing building owner, her spiritual fluctuations transmitting. Just because this divine Emperor Luo Feng joined your Dan Tower, you think you can ignore me? Expanding your business at will. I'm not expanding at will, it's just normal competition, replied the Changqing building owner. My prices remain the same as before. I've merely started offering stable supplies. My prices for elixirs of the same tier have always been lower than those of your insect nest, so naturally, the parties in Yuan City prefer to buy from me. Heh. The spiritual woman looked at the Changqing building owner and laughed, a wanton laugh. In front of me, do you think you have the right to compete normally? Changqing building owner felt a heavy pressure in his heart. It seems I've been too lenient with you for too long, the spiritual woman sighed. That's my mercy at fault. Insect nest master, you and I are both cultivators from the source world, and we both possess avatars, the Changqing building owner said angrily. You cannot truly harm me, so why must you bully me? Every time I see you, I'll trample over you. What can you do about it? The spiritual woman sneered coldly, her gaze shifting to Luo Feng in the not-too-distant area. And this must be Divine Emperor Luo Feng. Are you certain you want to meddle in the matters between me and the Changqing building owner? You'd better think it through. If you get involved, expect to pay the price. The spiritual woman stared at Luo Feng. I've already taken the reward from the building owner, Luo Feng said calmly. I am now the vice building owner of Dan Tower. I have no intention of making an enemy of the insect nest, but regardless, I must safeguard Dan Tower. I see. Sir, the Novelia.ne*T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The spiritual woman nodded. Her eyes suddenly turned pitch black, as she spoke in a deep voice. I'd like to see what kind of strength you have to act so insolently in front of me. Brother Luo Feng, be careful. This is her spiritual avatar, adept at spiritual pollution, the Changqing building owner transmitted through voice communication. I know. Luo Feng had already anticipated facing the insect nest master when he accepted the Changqing building owner's invitation. The information about the insect nest master was no secret in Yuan City. The insect nest master, even when she was weak, endured intense spiritual pollution. After reaching the late stage of the Divine Emperor in the Enlightened One lineage, she seemed unable to achieve perfection, likely because the pollution was too severe. As such, she switched to cultivating the bloodline system, using all her accumulations in the dark sacred realm to exchange for a high-level primordial bloodline, the infinite cicada tomb bloodline. This bloodline actually thrived on spiritual pollution. The more severe the pollution she endured while maintaining a sliver of clarity, the stronger the power of her bloodline grew. It was said that if her spiritual will could break free from the braided cage, and she accumulated enough spiritual pollution, she could fully unleash the true power of the infinite cicada tomb, triggering the ultimate awakening of her bloodline and ascending as a high-level primordial life. This time, she has come as a spiritual avatar, so her methods are purely spiritual, Luo Feng thought. In the dark sacred realm, she has done everything she can to enhance her spiritual pollution. With the infinite cicada tomb bloodline, she can still maintain clarity. However, when her pollution touches other half-primordial level experts, even if they can resist, they would require a long time and great effort to gradually purge themselves of the pollution. Even among the elders, with their spiritual wills reaching the half-primordial level, many were deeply apprehensive of the insect nestmaster. But Luo Feng had no fear. The undying heart inherently resists spiritual erosion. Moreover, I carry the secret technique left by Senior Yuan, the Lai Yuan technique. With these dual methods, why should I fear her pollution? That would be the joke of the ages. Luo Feng mused. Luo Feng. The spiritual woman grinned at Luo Feng, her smile widening. Whoosh! The spiritual woman appeared before Luo Feng and gently embraced him. This was the power of the spirit, transcending the concept of speed. In one thought, she had already ensnared him, her ethereal form covered by distorted, maddened faces. The moment Luo Feng was embraced, everything around him vanished. In that instant, Luo Feng saw a massive, illusory insect nest towering before him, imprisoning countless consciousnesses. The faces of these trapped consciousnesses writhed and struggled. The illusory insect nest also began corroding Luo Feng. How many cultivators have you killed? And not just killed, but actively devoured their souls, forcing them to become part of you. As he was invaded, Luo Feng instantly grasped the insect nest master's methods. This insect nest master, by choice, had absorbed countless souls, not annihilating them, but integrating them into her insect nest, where their consciousnesses would remain forever trapped. Though she appeared to be a single cultivator, the insect nest master actually contained the consciousnesses of billions of creatures. But her dominant consciousness was the ruler. The rest were mere sustenance. I carry the pollution alone. How much could I possibly endure alone? So, I let them bear it with me, to share the burden. This is what I call the power of the collective. Ha ha ha. Luo Feng, now experience the pollution I endured during my infinite nightmare. The voice of the insect nest master reverberated, and her corruption spread. This was precisely why many elders avoided her at all costs. Her pollution, born by billions of consciousnesses, was far worse than simply eliminating a few avatars. What's this? The insect nest master was taken aback. She tried every tactic she knew for several breaths' time, but failed to find even the smallest flaw or crack, unable to corrupt Luo Feng in the slightest. Insect nest master, even if you persist with your cultivation, devouring the souls of countless cultivators, and leaving them in eternal torment, scum like you should have died long ago, Luo Feng spoke with murderous intent. At that moment, Luo Feng resented nothing more than his current lack of strength. After all, the insect nest master hailed from the source world and possessed multiple avatars, making her incredibly difficult to truly kill. No wonder you dared to aid the Changqing building owner. So you have a way to resist spiritual corruption. I came merely as a spiritual avatar to warn you this time, but next time, I'll bring my true body, sneered the insect nest master, aware she could do nothing to Luo Feng. You, warning me? You pathetic scum. Lai Yuan technique. Without mercy, Luo Feng struck. Eclipsing into divine emperor perfection in spiritual will long ago, Luo Feng had recently gained a faint insight into breaking free from the braided cage while studying the primordial bloodline, achieving an almost flawless union, a synergy of all mysteries. His understanding of the Lai Yuan technique deepened, infusing it with the essence of natural perfection. Annihilation. With his spiritual will pushing the limits below the braided cage, and his newfound insight breathing life into the Lai Yuan technique, Luo Feng unleashed his strike. A small, slowly rolling miniature star appeared within the sight of the insect nest master. This star was far smaller and more ordinary than before, yet it represented a spirit more condensed, its aura perfectly restrained. Boom. The insect nest master's spiritual avatar could not escape upon witnessing this rolling miniature star. A spiritual technique. The insect nest master's spiritual avatar felt indifferent, having engaged in innumerable battles of the mind. Why fear Luo Feng's mental attack? Boom. That miniature star struck the spiritual avatar of the insect nest master, transforming her feminine form into a massive illusory insect nest, her most stable form. Yet even in this form, the illusory insect nest was torn apart, pierced through, and crushed by the star. Impossible. The insect nest master was incredulous. The mental star Luo Feng unleashed was so small, so plain, yet impervious to resistance. At that moment, the insect nest master realized the star carried a faint essence of natural perfection, reminiscent of her infinite cicada tomb bloodline. He must have inherited the secret techniques left by Senior Jin and the others, she thought in agony. Her disrupted illusory insect nest imploded, shattering millions of fused souls within. For those souls, destruction brought not despair, but liberation, their final moments marked by serene smiles, signaling the collapse of the nest's carefully maintained corrupt equilibrium. Not good. My spiritual avatar's damage has unhinged the pollution. I must retreat at once. Taking the strike, the insect nest master's spiritual avatar soared away, vanishing toward her lair. Luo Feng. You've caught me off guard with your formidable spiritual technique today, but I'll reclaim this loss. Her escaping spiritual avatar's voice boomed around Luo Feng and the Changqing building owner before fading into silence. As a purely spiritual being, her speed, both in attack and retreat, far surpassed any physical form. Luo Feng could only manage one Lai Yuan technique strike, before she vanished into the void out of reach. Pure spiritual avatars escape so quickly, Luo Feng remarked. Beside him, the Changqing building owner stared in astonishment. You defeated the insect nest master. The building owner could hardly believe it. He had only invited Luo Feng to hold the fort with the support of the fixed array, not expecting the defeat of the insect nest master. Who was the insect nest master? Beneath the three hall masters of Yulon City, there were figures like the insect nest master, master of deceit workshop, and elder Xingyi. Their strength was qualitatively different from ordinary elders. Ordinary elders might reach the late-stage divine emperor through a single path. But the likes of the insect nest master, and master of deceit workshop, had strength equivalent to mastering two paths at the late divine emperor stage. I only defeated her spiritual avatar, nothing more, Luo Feng said seriously. He understood clearly that if the insect nest master brought her true body, equipped with multiple secret treasures, the danger would be far greater than that posed by a mere spiritual avatar. Damn Luo Feng. Inside her vast insect nest, the returning spiritual avatar of the insect nest master was in immense pain. Luo Feng had no idea just how much trouble his Lai Yuan technique strike had caused her. This was far worse than losing several avatars. The pollution is out of control. I must stabilize it, stabilize it. She could no longer afford thoughts of retaliation, or concern herself with the outside world. This video will end here.